here's the real problem and there's multiple steps there. When I talk to a guy who's got this cool concept,
Right.
I said, okay, you've got this cool concept. How much do you love it? I mean, how much because this is going to take a lot of time and effort and work.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, where do you want to fit in this process?
Do you want to just sell it and walk away, right? Or
yes, sell and walk away. Do you want to just sell it? Do you want to manufacture it? Do you want to be the pick, pack, and ship warehouse? Do you want to make a brand out of this with 1,000 different products? What do you want to do with this? And I think that's the first place where people get stumped. And they're like, oh, I just thought you build it and they'll come. I'm like, no, that's not how it happens.
Right. That's what I mean. I think people think the idea is the magic. And I'm like, the idea is the beginning of the magic. This episode is brought to you by PT Pintcast Media. That's us. If you've ever thought about launching a podcast to grow your brand, your clinic, your business, we can help. Email me at jimmy@ptpintcast.com to get your podcast and YouTube channel off the ground. Today, our guest is part innovator, part entrepreneur, and 100% obsessed with improving how we train and rehab the human body, amongst some other things. His companies have developed product used by pro athletes, astronauts, physical therapists, senior living facilities, and a lot more people. But the real kicker, he doesn't just invent, he builds, produces, specs out all these things in the great state of Utah. And sometimes he does all those things in less than 15 minutes with dozens upon dozens of patents and a mission focused on functional, safe movement. He's out to change how we think about elastic resistance and lots of other things that we do with exercise equipment that we've used and will use in the future. From safety to innovation, learn why your resistance bands just might be putting your clients at risk and a whole lot more. Very few people have more energy than me, but this guy, he's one of them. From Stroops, meet the force behind the function. On the episode of PT Pintcast, welcome in Shon Harker. How do you explain, like, how do you explain to people, like, when you're at a dinner party or something, like, because I feel like you don't just you create things. You don't just like produce things. You just out of thin air, like, here's an idea. And then, I don't know, 15 minutes, 15 days later, there's a thing.
Yeah, really our goal is, this is kind of surprising. One of my goals is I want to be able to create a product from concept to market in 48 hours. That was the whole concept that I had. And the fastest we've done is 15 minutes. So
you've created a product. Hold on. Wait. You've created a product from concept to
production.
To actually producing something?
Yeah.
What was that product?
So that product's one I designed for Equinox. And they wanted a product that would take two dumbbells. So in the world of fitness, you go to the group fitness spaces and they have all the little mini vinyl dumbbells or little small dumbbells in your group fitness. Right. And they usually don't have anything more than 25 pounds. And they're like, okay, that's great. But let's say you do a particular exercise and a particular person comes in, like, I want to lift more than 25 pounds. And so how do I do this? Well, they don't want to have another set of 30s and 40s and everything else. So they said, Shon, could you come up with a way to make, so I can do it within seconds, can I combine two dumbbells into one dumbbell? And you got to be able to add it and subtract it really quick. Should take less than 5 seconds to make this change. So they explained to me, they showed me what they had, and I walked back in the back and designed it and fabricated it and says, this is what you want. And it works like fantastic.
You were like, hold my beer.
Yeah, hold my beer while I go get this. I'll be right back. And I went back in the back and sewed it up. And I came back and this is what you're looking for. And they're like, dude, it's crazy.
That's nuts. So what's your formal or informal background before you got to this? Like, how'd you learn how to do this?
So my background, formal background is I have a master's degree in mechanical engineering. I went to Lehigh University to get my undergrad. Mechanical engineering at Lehigh University in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And then I went to University of Washington in Seattle to get my master's degree. And I played collegiate football all up through Division I at Lehigh University. Was pretty successful there, and have managed to put this stuff together. with the combination of the engineering stuff. But my first product I designed was actually I sold was in high school,
What
and
was it?
it was this was back in DOS world for those who know
Right.
DOS. And my football coach said, "Hey, Sean, could you create a software that would scout the tendencies of the opponents?"
No.
So I wrote one of the very first softwares that you would simply enter the data of what the opponents did, it's down, distance, whatever it is, you put it in, and then you could actually help it predict. It would help predict
Wow.
tendencies of what the other companies, other football teams would do.
That's so smart. So now wait a minute. Lehigh plays don't they have like the longest football rivalry in the country or something like that? Like
With,
who
with Lafayette,
right. Lehigh Lafayette game is like bananas. Like these two little small schools,
right?
but it's been going on for a bajillion years, right?
Yeah, yes. So I was fortunate. I got recruited from Snow College, which is a junior college in here in Utah, and I was just looking to go continue football and hopefully go engineering school. And they were looking for an experienced defensive back, so I said, "Sure, what the heck?" And I got there. I actually became their first ever academic All-American, first team academic
Wow, good
All-American,
for you.
and that's with the Stanfords and the Harvards and the UCLA's, et cetera. All those people. It was Division One. That's the first time they ever had a first team academic All American, it was pretty cool.
All
And
right, so you've got the paper. You got it on paper.
paper, yeah.
You did. I mean, the DOS thing is cool. There's a large portion of our audience that has no idea what disk operating system, right? It's like the original, like iOS, the original OS.
It's basically the green screen. You could type in
Right.
it. You could type in it, and there was a green screen. There wasn't Windows, and you had to program back into like number 10. Go to this 20. So you don't get the Windows program. Windows didn't even exist
Right.
back
Right.
then. So it's way different.
All right, if you're still doing all your notes by hand, we need to talk. Athelis AI Scribe is changing the game. You walk in, you talk to your patient like you normally would, you treat them, and boom, your notes are drafted in real time, thanks to AI. No voice commands, no clicking around. It just listens and writes like a scribe, but smarter. People are cutting their documentation time by 90%. That's not a typo, 90%. That's actual feedback from real clinicians using it now. You want to see it in action? Go to athelis.com and take a test drive. That's ATHELAS.com and say goodbye to after hours charting. All right. So, but at what point did you say, hey, I want to be designing things that you're doing now, sort of healthcare, movement, exercise based?
So during when I was in college at University of Washington, I just remember this one day I was doing some rows, and my fingers are dying, and they're like, "There's got to be a way to bypass your grip, so you can work the bigger muscles." And so I designed a strap that, matter of fact, my wife went to a garage sale and bought a garage sale sewing machine, and I went down to the fabric store. My mother had taught me how to sew when I was a kid, and so I bought a roll of fabric, and I started to design a strap that would bypass your grip. So you could, then I said, well, I can now attach it to a bar, but what if I could attach it to a cable system? And what if I could attach it to this? And all these different ways you could bypass your grip. And this was before Amazon and before internet.
Sure.
And so to find the components was really, really, really difficult.
Wild.
And so I created the strap, and the way it would bypass your grip, it would loop around things. So it was a strap, and it would loop around a bar or loop around this or that. Well, then I came with an idea of the name of a strap that would loop, became Stroops. Strap loops Stroops. So that was the name of my first product. And I went to a trade show. This is way back before half your listeners know anything about, but I went to a trade show called NSGA in Chicago. And I had a suit and tie on. I'm thinking that's how you do business. And I show up, and everybody is in t-shirts and shorts because this is a fitness show. And I've got my banner, my backdrop is PVC pipe that I drilled holes in with a pegboard, and I'm trying to sell these homemade things. And I sold enough to cover the hotel room the first 2 nights, and then the last day, some guy came in and ordered 300 pair.
Wow.
And I'm like, these are selling for $16 a piece, so 300 pairs. Like, yeah. Well, what I didn't realize is they take about 45 minutes a piece to make.
Oh, no, yeah.
And I had a regular job. And so I was just making these for my friends. Like, hey, friend, can you want to make me one? I make one. I here, sell it. And now I had 300 to make. And so I scrambled and got a neighbor to help make them and so forth. And during that trade show, I met some people who said, hey, can you make an ankle strap? Can you make a thigh strap? And so I started on the weekends doing that. And then eventually started getting more clients, still working on the weekends. And some guy said, well, can you do stuff with elastics? Because you did stuff with an elastic. With your straps, you can do cool things. So I created a product that would have a belt with elastics to go to your ankles. So you wear it behind, it goes around your butt down to your Achilles. And you could wear it while you're playing basketball and so forth. And I made another couple of products. And then someone said, well, can you make really long elastics? One of my customers. And I said, no, they're dangerous.
Oh.
Because when elastic is stretched, how far do you, I ask therapists all the time, and even educate fitness people, when you stretch a band, you get more and more resistance. When do you stop stretching it? And they go, when it breaks.
Right.
Well, that means someone's going to get snapped in the face or the groin or somewhere else. I'm like, that's not really good safety protocol. Just keep backing up, client. You know when it's too far when it breaks and hits you. I'm like, yeah, probably not a really good way to do this. And so the client said, well, if you come up with a way to make it safe, then I'm interested in it. So I designed the first safe elastic. And we call it and I'll grab one just here since we're in the show and tell room.
I like show and tell way better anyway.
Yeah, show and tell is way funner. So I invented the sleeved elastic. And so the sleeve on the outside keeps the elastic from overstretching. It creates a safety stop.
Yeah.
You can't overstretch it.
Right.
The sleeve protects it from getting pinched, pulling your hair and pinching your skin.
Right.
It protects it from sunlight. It protects it from nicks and cuts when you wrap it around a bar or something. And if the elastic ever breaks, it stays inside.
It's within the sleeve.
It's in the sleeve. No one's injured. So we've invented the seat belt and the airbag for elastics. And people say, well, I don't know if I really need them. I says, well, you don't really need the airbag and seat belt until you get a car accident.
Until you need it. Yeah, you don't need health insurance either until you need it.
Yeah. So really, and then I was involved with one lawsuit where a kid had lost an eye. And an elastic broke and hit him in the eye. Actually, it involves two. One guy got hit in the groin. It broke and it came back and snapped him in the groin and he lost a testicle.
No, he did not. Really? Is that real?
Oh, yeah, it's for real. Yeah, for real. He lost a testicle. It whipped him behind. He had surgery, all kinds of stuff. And it was one of those 30-foot ones. They stretch, and it broke and it came back and it broke off the lead runner's belt and came back and whipped him. And I mean, he had big old marks all over his body. I mean, I had people gashed open their leg or gashed open their stomach, broke a window behind him, hit him in the face. There's even a senator who got smacked in the face and got messed up in the face with one.
So a couple things. Yeah. This is never going to happen until it happens.
Oh, yeah. It happens all the time. You'd be surprised how many people say, oh, yeah. I'll ask people, how many of you had a band break on them? And 80 to 90% of the people in the room say, yeah, I've had a band break on me. At least 10%. At least.
Well, that's the thing. It's never going to happen until it does. And then when you're using them all the time, or if you're using them all the time, it's happening more often. So I imagine, number one, the safety factor.
Yep.
Number two, you're going to need to buy that once.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you're not having to replace the damn things because you can't overstretch it so it never loses its capability, right? Or
well, it'll eventually erode over time. I mean, it loses some of its spring and elasticity over time. But most therapists that I've had, and a lot of people they've been using our product for over 10 years. Where I have people that have the naked tubing of just the plain tubing, they're replacing it every 3 to 6 months, if not more.
Right.
And so if you want to keep replacing it, then go ahead. And if you want to play Russian roulette exercise,
right,
then have at it. But to me, back to the legal case I was telling you about, the kid got smacked in the eye, and they said, well, what would happen if yours broke? And I said, well, it breaks inside and no one gets injured. He says, what's the cost difference between your product?
That's my next question.
And this? I says, about $10. And they said, so this kid would still have his eye if the doctor spent $10?
There's no way to come back from that in a courtroom.
It was over. They basically, the
Over.
attorney said, we're done. The other attorney said,
Ooh.
within the next 2 sentences, we're done. And
Oof.
the interview was over.
It's over.
And what's another thing that's interesting, when I first started selling these things, and even today, our distributors didn't want to sell them. And I probably shouldn't let this out there, but distributors didn't want to sell them.
Why?
Because ours don't need to be replaced.
Oh yeah, it's a business killer.
It's a business killer.
Oof.
So what happens is the business guys, the in-between guys, don't tell the end users, and we're trying to work through distribution channels. And so now you got to tell the end user the story that there's a safe solution. Yes, there is an airbag and a seatbelt. You know, it's kind of like the health insurance, like, hey, or not health insurance, but the doctors, like, we don't want to tell you that there's a seatbelt because we like the money that comes off these things.
Right.
So this way, there's a safety feature in it. And now in the fitness space, you almost can't buy elastic resistance product without a sleeve on it. But it hasn't transferred yet over to the rehab space.
Right. We're still buying it in rolls.
You're still buying rolls, and I mean, my dad was one, and he would do an exercise. And this is another thing that's interesting too, is the doc tells you, hey, go do this movement, and they use a cable machine, and then they say go. Then they hand you a piece of flat band, cut it off, just wrap this around your hand and do it, and it cuts the circulation off your hand. It pinches and pulls.
It doesn't feel great.
It doesn't feel great. So we've created some systems that, like in the back here, that work exactly off of a wall, but then you could mount the exact same thing over here to a door. And so
you can change the angle, and you can change
the angle. So if I wanted to do an exercise off of, let's say if I'm a physical therapist and I'm like, hey, I want you to teach you on a really nice setup. I want you to teach you how to do a particular movement. Then I could say, you know what? Now I need you to do the same thing at home. Here's a door piece.
Right over the door.
And now you do the same thing off of the door. So there's no relearning on how to do that movement. You don't have a high-low pulley system, and then you have a piece of flat band that you're trying to do it at home. It's the same technology that we say, use the same technology. Here you talk about quality, brand, safety, etc. in your clinic. Well, then why don't you do the same thing for your clients? Because now they can do something for the rest of their life.
Good point.
And stay strong and healthy.
Good point.
So the other thing is, like this, my mother-in-law, I don't know how often she uses hers, but it's still on the door.
Right.
So
she don't want to take it off.
They don't take it off.
Yeah.
So now when anyone comes over to her house, like, hey, what's that? Oh, that's my rehab place from Dr. XYZ. And now you get marketing.
Right. Put a QR code there and a logo on it. You're fine.
You're done.
So how, like, ballpark it for me. I mean, we looked at the treadmill before we started recording. We've looked at this. We talked about the Stroop, talked about the band with the sleeve. How many products have you actually ballpark invented?
Over 1,000. I do.
Seriously?
Yeah, I do. I did one. I just did 4 this week for a company that is training astronauts how to work out in space.
So who are you working with? With NASA? With Space Force? Or who is that?
I'm not allowed to say, but
well, I just how about this? You don't say, but I will say I just released an episode not long ago with Danielle Anderson and Corey Twine from NASA, and they train astronauts. So my guess is if it wasn't them, they're eventually going to be using it. That's how this world works.
Yes. So they basically contacted me because I designed another product for another aerospace company that doesn't have to do with it has to do with aerospace equipment.
Okay.
So we do stuff outside of fitness too. Totally outside of fitness.
Of course you do.
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Why not? Yeah, we actually use them for taking down trees and for offloading different heavy things, shutting garage doors, lifting apparatuses, hydraulic equipment, all kinds of stuff.
Because you're just looking at someone. I mean, the fun part about it is I imagine for someone like you, I don't have this ability. I've talked about this before on my podcast. I bought the house I'm sitting in like 2.5, 3 years ago, and it needed a lot of work. But I literally was like, how hard could it be? I've watched these shows, and I owned a screwdriver and a hammer, and I had used a saw once. And
Right.
but the lucky part is I had a buddy who was like, okay, I see what you want to do here. And he knew how to do everything.
Right.
And that's when I realized how big of a gap there was between what I knew and how hard things were. But you sort of approach it from here's the problem, how can I solve it sort of angle.
Yes. So it's different. And there's people that can copy a product. So once you invent a thing or come up with a widget, it's like, we'll just use this for an example. We go back to our sleeved elastic, which,
Right.
by the way, we call it a slastic.
Of course you do. Of course you would at Stroops.
Sleeve elastic, safety sleeve elastic. We had to smash it into one word.
Of course you would.
So now it's called the slastics. So once it's made, to create this is the very first time is extremely difficult. You know, how would you do this? Because, you know, do you put a string around it? Do you put a string in the middle of it? You know, how do you conceive a safe elastic? How does it? But once you conceive it and create all the components and you hand it to somebody else that's in the space, and this is what China is really good at, they're like, oh, we'll just copy it. So what happens in the China space and a lot of the knockoff companies is they make it look like a slastic, but the materials are crap.
Right, because they're going to copy, but they're going to water it down.
They're going to water it down. So the material on the inside is really the highest performance elastic we've ever found in the world. But China will take and put like a plastic in it.
Sure. And
so now it doesn't stretch very well and it doesn't perform, but oh, it looks like it. I tell people it's a VW in a Lamborghini body.
Right. So hold on a second. I actually like when China does that for clothing, because there's these women on Instagram that'll show the thing I ordered and then they'll show themselves in the outfit. And it's like, what? It's like, that ain't the dress that I thought I was buying. That's the only time I like it, because that's funny. But like, it also highlights, you get what you pay for. Like, yeah, you can get this cheaper. Are you familiar with the boots analogy? And I'll probably screw it up, but it's one of those little stories that teaches you a lesson. It's like, listen, there's a pair of boots for $10 or a pair of boots for $100. And you're like, buy the $10 boots. And you're like, that's right. Except the $100 boots are going to last you a decade, and the $10 boots are going to last you 6 months. So when you're done doing what you do for work, you spent more on the boots because you didn't want to you didn't look at the boots as an investment. You looked at it as a cost.
Right. Yeah. And it's the same thing here, but you got safety features, you get performance. I mean, one of my favorite stories was actually I was in Japan, and they had one of our Stroops apparatuses there with all the slastics, etc. And it was beat up. I mean, really beat up, highly worn. And then over in the corner, they had a brand new one that looked very, very similar from Asia. And I was pissed, trying to hold it together, but kind of pissed at the thing. I says, dude, I don't understand. As soon as you start wearing out our product, instead of staying and going buying another one, you go get this other knockoff. I says, I don't understand. He says, and he turned to me and says, you know, the reason why it still looks brand new is because we never use it. It doesn't work. And so we keep using your products because, you know, they work, and they work anywhere from a little kid to the highest professional athletes in the world. The Dallas Cowboys have had me design product for them.
That's cool.
So
who helps you? Who else is on your kind of team? I mean, you must have a patent attorney or someone on speed dial, right?
I have a patent attorney. We've done a lot of work, but I do almost all the product development behind all the walls way back there, which I could take you on a tour. We actually have a sewing division. We have a metal fabrication, powder coating.
Do it in house, man.
We do it all in house. So usually companies will have a guy that has, let's say you say, oh, I got this cool idea, but then you don't know how to design it.
Right.
Okay. So you don't know how to design it. And then what happens is the guy who designs it doesn't know how to manufacture it.
Right.
So then the design guy says, oh, here's a cool design. This is what we do. And then the manufacturer guy, that's impossible to make. And then you finally get that. And then you have to go say, okay, I got to make a batch of them. And then if you want to make a decent batch, you got to buy 500 or 1,000. And then usually people go to China. And usually what happens is then China sends you buy 1,000, they take your money first. Then they ship you all a bunch of crap. And it goes back and forth. And normally this thing takes $200,000 in multiple years, just because you're going back and forth. You don't think about this, but you go back and forth a lot. And so, and then you get bad quality. And then what ends up happening, you have a bunch of product in inventory because you had to buy 1,000 units or 10,000 units. one of my other favorite stories is this guy bought 40,000 units. He says, look, I made the perfect product. I bought 40,000. They only cost me $10 a piece. I brought him in. I said, well, it's been 5 years. How many have you sold? He says, I've sold 2,000 of them. I'm like, you're dead. He says, I've had to go back to work to
Pay for it.
all this inventory. I got $500,000 worth of inventory. So what we're able to do is, because I have the experience in the fitness and everything else, and we manufacture it all here. There's another great story is I had a gal that was working for 1.5 years with Asia trying to get a product done. And I said, just describe the product to me. So she described the product to me. I says, if you fly it here, I'll do it in a day. She said, there's no way. I said, yeah, I'll do it in a day. And so she flew out, and we made 6 to 8 prototypes in one day. And she walked away with a finished product. She said, like the next day, she said, I need 2 or 3 of these things for, or maybe half a dozen for the CEO and people to try out. So we next day aired the next day, a bunch of them. So these are great. We got the thumbs up. We now need 20 or 30 to teach an entire fitness class. So we shipped out the 20 to 30 within the next couple of days after that. And then they ordered something like 40,000 that we had to ship within 6 months.
Damn.
So we're able to take a product from concept to market, and the risk very, very quickly, and the risk level for the consumer or the person is extremely low.
Much lower.
Much lower. I mean, we do it, and most of the time I do it for free because I love it. But the way I do it for free, I call it joint venture or venture capital engineering. So I bet with you. So you say, I've got this really cool widget. I'll design it for free and I'll manufacture it first. You just have to buy them from us for a certain while. Or you could hire your own engineer. You can start sourcing wherever you want.
Right.
You can take, another classic example, we just finished a legal case.
Okay.
We finished a legal case last week. It was a week-long trial. And these guys had hired us to develop a product for the golf space. And I developed over 120 prototypes in 5 months for them. And pretty much the day they got the samples, and they were supposed to buy a certain number before they went somewhere else, so I could get a payback. And if they didn't sell any, and it died, it's like, crap, that didn't work. But if it did, I want to ride the gravy train for a while. That's my payback. Because they had no risk up front. Well, the day they got it, or pretty much the day they got it, they shipped it over to Taiwan, to China. And they said, hey, do everything except take the Stroops logos off. Put ours on, etc. We did all this work, and then we shipped it to Taiwan. It still took them like 8 months to figure it out. Then they decided to bring it back into the United States, and it took those guys 11 months to figure out. And the product was done. I started from zero and developed the entire product, said, here it is, and ready to produce.
All right, real talk for a second. If you're a physical therapist or running a clinic, you already wear like 50 hats a day. Clinician, manager, scheduler, part-time tech support. I see you. But what if you had a sidekick that could help you do all of that? Something smarter. That's where Empower EMR by MW Therapy comes in. It's built just for physical therapists, and it's loaded with smart automations and AI that help you grow your practice without burning out. No more chasing paper trails or fighting outdated systems. This thing handles billing, scheduling, documentation, patient engagement, all in one clean, customizable platform. The best part? It's actually affordable and scales as you grow. Clinics everywhere are loving it, and if you're ready to take the stress off your plate and be the hero of your practice again, check out a free demo at mwtherapy.com. So ballpark it for me, Shon. What percentage of the things that you're creating come from you or your team versus like other people bringing you ideas and say, let's do it together? Like ballpark it.
I would say try about 85% come from me that we do. The products that are what we're not really good at is we're not really good about telling everybody the cool stuff we do. So one of our problems is that I design product, and I love it. I enjoy that part of my business so much that I forget to market it.
Yeah.
I turn it over to somebody else, like, here's the photos, the videos, go sell it, have at it, crank it. And then I go design another product. I
Well,
probably do,
know which part of the assembly line you're good at, and it sounds like you do.
yeah. And so I'll do like 20, I think I'm working on over 20 products right now. And most of them I'll get done within a week. But now you turn it over to somebody else and like, okay, so I designed one for another distributor. He's like, hey, I love it. Can you do this? So I design it for him, send him a whole sample, and then the tariffs hit, and he's trying to deal with all that stuff. So his concentration right now is not on how to add this product. I've got another company. I'll just say it out loud. Rogue.
Yeah.
I'm doing like 25 products for them right now.
And how does this start? Like, not necessarily just with Rogue, but is it a problem? Is it this doesn't exist, create it, solve this problem? Or is it take this and make it better, faster, smaller, lighter?
There's both. So we talked a little bit about this Blaze Pod thing, and I can't show you on screen yet what it is.
Right.
But Blaze Pod came and said, hey, we've got this problem.
Solve
How
it.
do we fix this? And we wanted to do A, B, C, and D, and we're really good about marketing and selling, but we don't want to manufacture, and we
Right.
want
That's not their wheelhouse.
That's not our wheelhouse. You'll have somebody else that says, you know what, we've got a problem, I can't source it from somebody else. We got a problem where we can't get them fast enough, or I've got guys all the time like, hey, Shon, I have this cool idea, and can you make it come to life? I did it with another guy not too long ago that does for Major League Baseball throwing arm stuff for baseball stuff. Matter of fact, crossover symmetry. I designed the crossover symmetry one. They had a problem. They came to me because they had their bands. They were breaking apart in the sunlight. The sunlight, when they put them on the fence for baseball, was eroding. I says, well, if we switched over the sleeve elastics, it'll solve your problem. So I designed their entire product, and they ran from there.
This reminds me of 3M, which is a chemical company, but they make a bajillion things. And even if you've never heard of 3M, you've touched 3M products a billion times in your life. And I don't know when this was, but it was like early internet. And they had a problem like, and I'm going to screw up the story, but it doesn't matter. Like they had a problem drilling wells or something.
Yep.
And they kept asking geologists, how do you solve this problem? And they kept getting the same answers because geologists look at the same thing the same way. And this super smart guy, essentially like back in the old West, like, when there would be a bounty on somebody, bring this guy in dead or alive,
Right.
$100. He put a bounty because he said, how much money would this make 3M if we solved it? And their actuaries were like $1 billion. And he's like, well, then I'm going to put $1 million prize on this. And he put it on the internet. It's like tacking it to the, sheriff's wall. He goes, solve this, I'll give you $1 million.
Right.
And it was something ridiculous, like a shepherd or something like that, like a guy that would have no business doing it. But because whatever reason, he just knew this. And they realized that was the first like crowdsourcing of problems. It sounds like you're the reverse, where you have the world who have problems. They come to you and you're like, all right, hang on. All right, I'll have it to you tomorrow. Like, I'm going to put the solution from this into the other thing of this. And then it sounds like you're the reverse of that 3M.
Yeah, so that's pretty much, and I wish I could tell you how it works, but my brain will actually spins it all in 3D. So I'll add and subtract parts and components and see if it works better or not, and then try to create a solution. And I do it also, the ability to take the problem, figure out a solution, and then you have to figure out how to manufacture it too.
Right, because it's not just make it once. It's now how do we scale this? Because otherwise it's not a business.
That's part of the design. So if I'm just like a imaginary design guy and I make this really cool thing, but it can't be produced.
Right.
Then it's like, who cares? Go back. I saw one guy, they hired an engineer to design some stupid product. And I'm like, dude, you can't make this for anything under like $500 and you want to sell it for 50. So you have to redesign it to make it so that works. So what I'll do is I'll talk with people that says, okay, what do you want the product to do? I want it to do A, B, C, and D, or whatever that is. Okay, what's your price point? And sometimes like, okay, I want 50 cents. I'm like, you know what? It's not going to happen.
Me too, but that's not realistic.
Yeah. If you want to do something for $50 or $100 or maybe $1,000, we could do something. And then I just go to work and figure out how to piece it together to make it match. I was going to bring some of this into I'll use an example with the treadmill because we didn't record the treadmill. So I'll tell you about the treadmill experience because it kind of goes through the whole thing. So the treadmill, I'm used to running on a normal motorized treadmill, and it pushes your feet back. You step on it and it moves it back, and that moves it back, and it's a great cardio piece. And then a decade or two ago, someone created the curved treadmill, which looks like this. You step on the high part and it rolls down. I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of cool, but your foot strikes uphill and it pushes down and then it pushes off downhill. And it's a gravity-based system where it just...
Right, there's no motor in that one.
There's no motor in it. Really slick product, good for cardio. Well, we're going to go through a lot of... If I'm talking too long, just let me know. But
no, it's all right.
There's a lot of really cool stuff here. So one of the things that... I think you can still see me. Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to teach was, instead of just doing, let's say, this movement, I wanted to teach you how to do it while you're walking.
Right.
Because then, sometimes people live on the right foot and some on the left. In doing movements, you need to be able to do this kind of movement. Okay? Maybe it's even if you do 2 at a time and you're like pushing a lawnmower. Okay? That's a very normal very normal function versus just stand here and push off. Hang on a second, I'm changing up to make everything match here. So the concept was, I like the concept of moving because I like to exercise while I move versus just stand and lay on a bench and do a bench press. And so the concept was, this is great, but if I'm walking forward, that's more like pushing a lawnmower. The problem is I can only take 2 or 3 steps and then I'm back.
Right.
Okay, so how could I have forever walking and feel like it's walking outside? Well, only way I could figure out how to do that was to do a motorless flat treadmill. And so when I first contacted some treadmill manufacturers, they said, it'll never work, Shon. You can't get a motorless flat treadmill to work. I says, don't worry about that. I'll get it to work. They said, you're crazy. It doesn't work. And so I said, I'll just buy a bunch of them and then you'll make them. And so I had them make some for me and they laughed and they sent me a bunch of motorless flat treadmills. So the motorless flat treadmill, as you can see, this is flat. And all I simply do is, in order to get it to work, in order to walk outside, you have to push off a surface.
Right.
You can't go on ice. You need a friction push off. Okay, so then I'm thinking, how do I do this? How do I get my treadmill to work? Well, I could push off this surface. Okay, that's cool. But now I want to walk hands-free and it doesn't work. So then the next grade up is, well, if I just hold myself in place with a strap, then I can actually walk without hands and go from here. Now I could take the same elastics back here and I can forever push my lawnmower, and me as a doctor, I can sit here and watch them to see if they're doing it right, or if they have a limp or whatever else it is, then it works. Well, one of the things we found out is, obviously, if you're running and you fell down on this treadmill, it instantly stops. Well, on a motorized treadmill, you get launched off the back and you might get beat up.
Right, you get burned up.
You're running as fast as you want to go, and you slow down and stop.
Wow, that's fast, man.
Yeah. Well, then we can teach you how to go back pedal too. A lot of people, when they're trying to run backwards or leaning too far, they fall on their butt. If you don't have your balance this way, you can't move backward. We can teach you how to walk backwards, run backwards, sidestep, and turn and run, and you can go at different paces all the time you want. If you misstep, it stops. So now I've got a safety built-in features.
Wow.
With this treadmill, and there's no technology to try to figure out which one to go fast and slow, and it feels like you're walking outside.
Wow.
So back to the other thing that we were talking about, is the things that we've learned, is that if I, as you saw, I was kind of had a limp on there. I could go any pace that I want. I actually had a guy that ran on this. He says there's no way to run it. He was an amputee. So he was a triathlete amputee. He says I can't run on a treadmill because one leg's faster than the other. I said, you can run on this one. He didn't believe me. Then he got on and started running. He's like, this is crazy. You can actually run and maintain my pace. So I'm looking around at my space here. I wanted to tell you about I'll fake it and make it work really quick with the product. So if I take, and one of the examples we learned here, so when you learn about the body, as I'm trying to figure out the body and how it works on the treadmill, we experimented with what happens if you have an injury on a leg. And this leg happens to be, you get on a cane and you start walking and you're dragging this foot. It's like, okay, what do I do in physical therapy? Well, back up a second. If I get rid of the cane, my body memory still has this foot dragging. Normally in physical therapy, they'll put a little elastic around your leg and have you work doing a knee drive exercise or something like that. But it doesn't retrain the entire body. What we learned is that walking is such a normal, natural behavior of the body that you know how to walk. I mean, once you learn how to walk, you kind of stay in that same pattern. You know how to balance. And so your body then recalculates how to stay balanced after every injury or whatever it is. It just figures out how to do this. So one of the things we found out, or we experimented with, is if I happen to have this injury, this leg, and I'm dragging it, how do I activate this leg? Yeah, I can do this, but if I can teach you to walk with resistance on this leg, and when I take off the resistance, your body's still going to remember to engage that muscle. And it will be not just the muscle strengthening, but it'll also be a neural reprogramming. Hey, you guys got a fire, stop being lazy. So, as an example, I didn't set it up for this particular event, so I'll just fake it here. I'm going to pretend like this is the leg that's dragging, and I would attach this to my anchoring position. Let's see how close I get this to set up right the very first time. Probably not exactly right. There's better straps. I just didn't come prepared to talk about this.
You'd probably make one in 10 minutes though, yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably make one in 10 minutes, whatever. But it's in the other room. So I just now attached it here, and now every time I walk, you can see that I have to engage this leg. Well, first the brain is like going, what are you doing? And you start hobbling like this, but after about 30 seconds, you'll start just walking as normal as you possibly can. And then I get the client to talk to me, and we start talking about life. Next thing you know, this becomes the normal gait pattern, and they don't realize that neurologically they're telling this muscle to fire harder than it was before. But this is now the new normal because they're balanced, their whole body is working together. When I get done, you simply take off this, and this leg is doing this. When it looks ridiculous if you're walking normally before, but if you're walking with this leg trailing, all of a sudden it's even with the other leg. So I can and I can pull on your forehead to do it. I can twist your body for scoliosis. I can change. I had one gal came in, I tried this for the first time. She was a young soccer player. Her toes were pointed out. She walked like, I call it ballerina feet. I'm sure there's a more technical term. So we put the elastics on the outside of her feet, so she had to really fight with the inside of her legs to keep her feet straight. I made her walk for 3 to 5 minutes, took them off, her toes are straight. Now, eventually they're going to go back because she has to re-strengthen them, but for the temporary next 5 or 10 minutes, her feet were heading straight. We reprogrammed. So I don't know how and why. I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing. But this is the kind of stuff that I enjoy the challenge.
You just doing this all day? I mean, you just look like you're Mr. Wizard. You know what I mean? Like you just building stuff all day and.
Quite a bit. And then we go, so I build stuff most of the day. I still have to do the CEO stuff. I'm still
Sure.
present CEO. So I do the CEO stuff, the HR stuff, the stuff that I hate. But this stuff, I mean, I had a company that sells on QVC, which for people who don't know, Home Shopping Network.
Yeah, QVC's,
And and they said, man, we gotta come with some cool products. And so they sent me one of their little mini elliptical cycles that the grandpa and grandma. And they're like, wow, that's kind of interesting. I bet you I could come up with something that's way simpler, a fraction of the price, that's easier. And so I thought about it, and I didn't have time to make one except that morning. The morning we're going to meet again. And I says, by the way, I made this morning. And they're like, dude, this thing rocks. We want one. And it'll do upper body, it'll do lower body. But, I'm out there learning. We purchased Fitter First. I don't know if you know who Fitter First is. Fitter First is a company out of Canada. They were ready to retire, and they do a lot of wood products.
Okay.
Wood balance boards, etc., and with a half sphere at the bottom. So I bought their company, and within a month and a half, we had built out a new room in our manufacturing facility, installed a brand new CNC laser, CNC wood machine router, taught our guys how to do it, and we're shipping out 500 products a month.
Lord.
So that's in amongst a bunch of other stuffs.
So what do you even call? Are you like an inventor? Like what would you even call yourself? Is there a word for you?
Crazy.
Crazy. All right.
I think of myself as kind of like an inventor, but the part I really like is I've always enjoyed bringing product to market.
Because it's not just inventing it. You have to. There's more to that trip.
Yes. So a lot of quote inventors will just invent a thing
and then walk away.
Then they want to walk away.
Yeah.
My excitement comes in where I can actually take a product and solve the problem, and then help get it to market, and then help close the deals.
Dude, I got a crazy idea.
Okay.
And we're spitballing as we record, but I'm not going to edit this part out.
Okay.
How great would a live stream be where we could bring people on? I'd be the host. I'm just the talking. I'll be the dancing monkey.
Right.
You're the guy. You're essentially our Shark Tank panel.
Mm-hmm.
And people in healthcare, I don't care where they are in healthcare, they come on and they pitch their idea to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you do whatever math you do, or thinking about it, and then how do we do it? What do we make it out? Right. Because I feel like if then you can like make them an offer. You could be like, we can make that in 7 days, and if we do, let's talk off air, whatever. I feel like, because I've heard people say, I know you want to hold your idea, you want to like be safe with your idea,
right?
Because you're like, someone's going to steal it. And the funny part is, what we actually know is, you could put your idea on the internet. It's not that people aren't going to do it. There's too many steps. So more great ideas probably die because no one takes action on them.
Here's the real problem and there's multiple steps there. When I talk to a guy who's got this cool concept,
right?
I said, okay, you've got this cool concept. How much do you love it? I mean, how much because this is going to take a lot of time and effort and work.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, where do you want to fit in this process?
Do you want to just sell it and walk away, right? Or
yes, sell and walk away. Do you want to just sell it? Do you want to manufacture it? Do you want to be the pick, pack, and ship warehouse? Do you want to make a brand out of this with 1,000 different products? What do you want to do with this? And I think that's the first place where people get stumped. And they're like, oh, I just thought you build it and they'll come. I'm like, no, that's not how it happens.
Right. That's what I mean. I think people think the idea is the magic. And I'm like, the idea is the beginning of the magic.
And I've had people come to me with an idea. I'm like, that's great. Are you going to sell it? Are you going to market it? What are you going to do? Because right now, until you sell or market, I can invent it and I have distribution channels, but I don't have the bandwidth to sell your widget.
Right.
Because I've got 1,000 other widgets. I'm just not going to be. I do have distribution channels I can instantly sell and bring it to those distribution channels and say, I think you're going to like this product. And one of the nice things is I have distribution channels that I can drop it in pretty quick. If you're a brand new inventor and you've never invented anything or just this concept, then you don't have those distribution channels, and it's
Right.
really difficult to get the distribution channels.
Well,
And
that's
it's
where that's where a Shark Tank value comes into
right,
play. It's not just the money. In
right.
fact, I would say it's probably less. Money's important. Listen, don't get
Yep.
me wrong. But it's, hey, who, like, when you hear Damon John or Mark Cuban, like, I know a guy that could help you do it. Like, you're probably the guy on half those guys. I know a guy who could build this in a week and he could have it that's probably more of a thing. You have access to anything you want on the internet. The problem is you got to know where reliably, how to do those things. And that's simple, but not easy.
And it's who do you trust with your widget?
Correct. You've just
So
told me someone could take it and do it themselves.
yeah, so let's say, and this is one of the things why we don't go to China. China has their ethics on taking care of the stuff is not very good. So you send it to a you say you have a fitness idea, you send it to a fitness manufacturer. We'll be happy to do it. They make 100 for you and 100 for everybody else, and
Well,
now you're no longer first.
well, there was that movie with Jennifer Lawrence where she made that mop, right? And those guys were trying to rip her off.
So, it happens all the time.
But I never knew of this. And I'm like, wait a minute, she's getting shaken. She's getting a shakedown. And, in the movie was kind of cool, right? Like where she's like pushing back and yada, yada. But like, if she's getting shaken down in the movie, that probably happens every day.
It happens all the time. And so
Yeah.
you basically create a product and they're like, hey, great, we'll make it for you. We'll ship you the first 500 or 1,000. But since you gave them enough manufacturing capability, because your order was big enough, well, I'll just make 600 of them.
Right.
And I'll send the other 100 to all the different people that I know. And next thing you know, you're competing with your manufacturer.
You're competing with yourself. Yeah.
And in the meantime, the people in China, I mean, even like I told you that story about this legal thing that we were in not too long ago, they had to send out a sample for China to copy. Well, if you don't have a sample and you say, hey, China, can you make me a golf product? Da, 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 da. They're like, dude, you either send me a drawing or send me a sample, but I need really a sample. I don't really work really well off of a drawing, but a sample is the most important thing to them. So you have to figure a way to get from zero to up and then you got to get in production. And what the guys on Shark Tank usually like, they want to see a product that's had some success.
Yeah. What's your sales? What's your sales?
What's your sales? What's your sales? Me, I come and say, I just want to look at your product and I think that I can make it really cost effective and I can hit your price points. The trouble I have is, can those guys actually sell? And most of them can't sell.
Right. Yeah. Where are you in this process? Like, are you good at selling? Are you good at manufacturing? And if you're just the idea guy and you put it down and you think that's going to change the world, you've done 1/10 of what needs to be done for it to be a product, and never mind a company, because a company is a slew of products.
Yeah, it's really different. I designed another product for another guy. He's back in North Carolina, and I designed it for him to help scoliosis and back problems. It's a really cool product, but he got sucked into the big floods or the hurricanes that hit in Asheville.
Yeah,
and so it totally derailed his entire product.
Yeah.
But this isn't his space. His space is more of a chiropractor, physical therapist person.
Right.
It's like, you're going to have to spend 4 or 5 or 6 hours knocking doors.
Well, that's why, like, on Shark Tank, you'll see, like, what's your day job? Are you quitting your job to do that? Like, where are you a partner, or are you just dropping this on me? I'm in charge of it? Like, so they always ask like the same questions, but they're important, obviously. Like, if I only get 3 questions to ask you, what are your numbers, right? Or what are you good at? What's your experience, right? If you're pitching for VC money, who's on your team? Why are you able to do this and not that someone's going to steal this idea 6 months from now? Like, why are you going to be able to do it better, faster, cheaper?
Yeah, the place that we're weakest in is doing the marketing and sales.
Sure. So then what do? Hire out? You find someone who's good at it and you say.
So I've tried a whole bunch of stuff. I've tried to hire my own sales teams. I've got distribution. We've tried a bunch of we've tried the internet things, and I know how to do this and I know how to do that, like third party stuff. And that's really been the biggest struggle, is to try to figure out how to get, and people tell me all the time, man, once a product's done, it's super, super easy. I know how to take it from there, but we haven't paired up with those guys.
Right.
We haven't found that solution, because I'll have people come in like, man, I wish I had a product that does this. I'm like, dude, I've got 20 of them. Which solution do you want? I had another golf company reach out to me last week and says, man, we want to do some golf stuff. I'm like, here's 6 products. Which ones do you want?
Right.
You've just been waiting for a home for someone who can sell these. And right now that's the things that we're missing, is getting the right people. So let's just say that in the physical therapy world, I think that's the main clients you guys have.
Right.
We're currently working with a chiropractor, and he developed with my help, he developed a home neck traction piece.
Okay.
And so we make a bunch of them for him, but he's the one that's out selling and doing it. So let's just say you had a physical therapist that says, oh my gosh, or anybody else, I wish I had a product X that did this. This would solve all these problems that I have. Okay, cool. I can create the product. We can create a business relationship together, but I'm not the doctor that's going to go preach the gospel of that thing, go knocking doors. It's just not. I can say, I can go and distribute it, send it to all my distributors, but you're going to have to be the specialist about in the face. And if you don't want to do that,
then we shouldn't start.
We shouldn't start, but I'd be happy to take it over from you, and I'll give you a small amount of money.
Right.
But it's a really small amount of money. You think, oh, I want 50%. I'm like, dude, that's not 50%. That's like about a 0.001 nothing percent. You get
right. Juices and bucket squeeze.
There's nothing for it. So
I feel like there's more to come with Shon on the show. I would love to flesh out like a cool, like, even if it was in person or something. I feel like there's a bunch of people with good enough ideas. I mean, I bet you there's a lot of people with really crappy ideas too. I'm sure you hear a lot of crappy ones, but there's probably some really great diamonds that are never going to get created because people don't know you. If people wanted to get in touch with you, what's the bet? Like, how do you like to be pitched?
Email's the best. Shon, SHON at Stroops.com. Stroops, STROOPS. By the way, since we brought that up, I learned something interesting about the name Stroops. I was actually at a trade show, one of our first trade shows, and some guy comes up to our booth and says, oh my gosh, you have the coolest, most unique products I've ever seen. And he stepped back and he looked at our name. He says, oh my gosh. And the name is sports spelled backwards. That was genius.
Oh my gosh.
And we're like going, so Stroops it's sports with an extra O backwards, sports. So that became, at that time I said, that's our new brand. That's our brand, sports backwards. So if they reach at Shon at Stroops.com, people will reach out to me at LinkedIn. Right. I can communicate for the first time or two on LinkedIn, but then I have to switch it. There's just too many channels to communicate on.
Sure.
And then eventually it's phone calls and text messages. So there's a couple different things. Inventor people have a cool idea. That's a group that we're interested in. The other one is, Shon, we love your treadmill, or we love your slastics, or we want to learn more about that cage that goes around the thing. We need advocates who believe in what we're doing and says, you know, we just love what you're doing. And I had one doctor, a physical therapist, that came to one of the APTA shows. And she says, you've designed this cage that goes over the top of a treadmill. It actually does dynamic changes. I've dreamed that there would be a product like this to dynamically change people, change their posture, change their gait patterns, etc., correct their gait patterns. There's nothing like it on the market. She said, I've dreamed this all. Yeah. Now, well, how do I pair up with you that you teach this gospel of, dynamic body creation or body rehab? That's kind of where I kind of stop and I can tell you the basics, right? And I can show you the basics, and I can tell you why and how, but I don't go and do speaking assignments. I can speak, right, but they put me up there. Hey, here's the engineer, inventor. He's going to now talk about all these guys about how the body works, and I'm not qualified for that, even though I could do pretty well.
Right.
That product is, it's one of in the middle of our design room, but that cage piece, this is the, you see all kinds of stuff. That's the back of the wood room, but this cage piece, you can kind of see it here. The treadmill is there, and then there's a cage that goes up and over, and then I'll just put this here for a second. Can you still see me?
Yep.
So now this is the treadmill, just like the one in the other room. And then I can take and attach elastics from different parts, the front and the back and the side, and offload, and I can change and twist your body while you walk on the treadmill. So this piece we've got multiple doctors using this, but there's so much research to be done. I actually had one of the coolest things. I can send you this link, but the coolest one I had was this gal who has cerebral palsy. She rolled up in a wheelchair and she wanted to get on the treadmill just like all the other students. And so we put a harness on her, put her up over the top, and she was able to walk with offloading and at her erratic gait pattern, and it would keep up with her. So she was able to walk just like the other kids.
That's wild.
Really, really cool experience. So, and by the way, since we're here, you're gonna see all kinds of cool stuff. That wood treadmill right there.
Yeah.
That's the first ever Optimal motorless flat treadmill.
So that was a step or two before what we saw in the other room.
Oh yeah, this was proving out the concept, and my father's a great woodworker guy, so my father created the shroud out of oak.
Good for you.
That's the first ever. So
all right, Shon, the last thing we do on each episode is called the parting shot.
Okay.
For an audience of physical therapists, if they're still listening at 57 minutes in, they're either just terribly interested like I am, or they've got an idea.
Okay.
For those people with an idea who would love to one day hold it, sell it, whatever, use it with a patient, what advice or what words of wisdom would you give them?
Figure out what role you want to play. Do you want to just take care of the one client and make them happy? Or is this something that you would see beneficial for lots and lots of people? And if so, what role do you want to play in making that happen? I think that's the number one thing. And then do you want to pair up with somebody else, or do you want to do it by yourself? If you do it by yourself, it's a long haul. It can be done. But sometimes it's easier to say, hey, I'm going to team up. You're really good at this, and I'm good at this, and let's work together.
Yeah, this is why movies like Ocean's 11 are so cool, right? This is why the A-Team was the greatest TV show ever in the 80s, right? It was like we got a bunch of people with different skill sets. We're going to put them together, and everything just magically works, right? You can be James Bond, or you could be the A-Team, or you could be Ocean's 11, right? Like figure out where you are, what needs to be done in that particular heist. Shon, definitely want to have you back on the show, man. I feel like you could be like, I feel like we could like do an episode quarterly, and we could just do our own mini QVC. Like, all right, this episode, we're going to show you these 5 things. And look at this, and look at this, and look at this. It would
be fun to get some of your listeners to throw out some ideas like, hey, how would you solve this problem? Or pitch. I've got a problem I can't solve, even if they don't want to do it.
Right. It could be two. Yeah. It could be like, here's the idea for the product, and they could give us a sketch, whatever. Or it could be, how would you, I have this big problem. Here's my big, hairy problem. We give them all to you. You pick 5 or 6, whatever. Then we just go through and you're like, okay, here's how I might solve that problem. And just show that could be wild, man.
Yeah. And another one would be interesting if we actually had one of those people show up and we did some kind of a, where we actually make it. I mean, we could go back in the shop and videotape the different spots, like ching, 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 ta-da. Look at this. We made a product come to life for a customer.
I don't know, Shon. You sound pretty good at marketing. This is marketing, what we're doing right now. The idea. I mean, we still need someone to do it.
But I need the channel, like you got the channel of the viewers.
Right.
I don't have the viewers. I've got all the rest of the stuff, but I don't have the viewers.
Right. That's right. You start doing, the funny thing is you have to create it first. Like you got to turn a microphone on and you got to talk to nobody first. And then you talk to one person and then 8 people and then 15 people. And it sucks at first. And a lot of people will give up. People are like, well, why is your podcast so, why are you still doing this 9.5 years later? I had a background as a radio broadcaster. That didn't hurt, but that's not why the podcast was successful.
Right.
I've shown up 3 to 4 times a week for 9.5 years.
Yep.
That's it. Like I love the fact that it ain't rocket science, but I also like doing it. I knew I was going to do it, whether it sucked or worked. I just liked it. So that's a success there. So, all right, we'll work on this off air and we'll come up with a fun way to do it.
All right. Sounds great.
Shon, appreciate the time, man. This is not exactly how I thought this episode was going to go, and it went even cooler.
Awesome.
All right, Shon, appreciate the time, man. Let's be real. You didn't become a therapist to be average. You've got something in you that wants more mastery, more impact, more confidence in the clinic. That's exactly what Brooks Institute of Higher Learning delivers. Their residency and fellowship programs aren't just resume builders, they're transformation zones. You get one-on-one mentoring, deep dive classwork, labs, and real-time experience inside one of the most advanced rehab systems in the country. And the best part? You're not grinding this out on the side. You get a full salary and benefits while you train with the best. Whether it's ortho, neuro, peds, geriatrics, women's health, Brooks IHL helps you become the expert you know you're meant to be. Check out brooksihl.org to learn more and take that next step.